had spent 8 long years chasing after Adam, my then fiancé, only to watch him remain completely infatuated with my younger sister Mia. Heartbroken and exhausted, I finally gave up and turned to Brandon, a man who had quietly loved me for 7 years. He adored me so much that he even tattooed my name on his tongue. His entire world seemed to revolve around me. When I agreed to marry him, he was so overwhelmed with emotion that he broke down in tears. For a moment, I thought I had finally made the right choice. But everything changed the night before our wedding. I overheard Brandon talking to one of his friends. "Do you even love Leah? Do you really want to marry her?" his friend asked. Brandon, his voice low and slightly slurred from alcohol, replied, "This is the only way Mia can be happy." His friend sighed deeply. "You're so devoted to Mia. You've loved her in silence for years. Even knowing she was in love with Adam, you let her marry him without saying a word. Then you chased after Adam's fiancée. And now you've succeeded, but at what cost? You're giving up your own happiness." Brandon's tone grew heavier, yet filled with emotion. "As long as Mia is happy, I don't care what happens to me." Hearing those words, I froze outside the door, as if struck by lightning. All 7 years of what I thought was his deep love for me were nothing more than a lie. The person he truly loved was Mia. He was willing to sacrifice his entire life just for her. How ironic. Everyone loves Mia. No one loves me, Leah. That night I walked through the rain, crying until my heart felt torn apart. By dawn I had made a decision. A few minutes later, I received a phone call confirming that my purchase of a private island had gone through successfully. It was completely secluded, and no one would ever find me there. The customized family I had requested was also being arranged. Professionals trained to provide unconditional love and care. I responded with a quiet, "Okay." I decided to finalize everything within 30 days before leaving. Since childhood, my parents had always favored Mia. Now, even my 2 fiancés, Adam and Brandon, preferred her. No one truly loved me. So I would leave this world behind. I would move to the secluded island and start anew with a family I created with my money. From that point on, my parents, Adam, Brandon, none of them would exist in my world anymore. I began preparing documents and arranged to cancel my household registration to ensure no one could track me down. But to my dismay, the most crucial document was at my parents' house. I had no choice but to return. When I entered, I saw my parents pacing anxiously in the living room. The moment they saw me, their expressions darkened. "Why are you here? You haven't been home in years, and now you suddenly show up? Why can't you learn from Mia? The 2 of you are sisters, but your worlds are so far apart." I had heard these words for over 20 years. Without a word, I went upstairs, retrieved the document, and prepared to leave. My calmness only made them angrier. "Do you even see us as your parents? You ungrateful, disrespectful child." As they continued yelling, the front door suddenly swung open. Brandon entered, carrying Mia in his arms. They froze when they saw me standing in the foyer. His intimate posture with her was unmistakable. I glanced at them briefly, then turned to leave. My indifference unsettled Brandon. He quickly put Mia down. "Leah, don't misunderstand," he said. "Mia sprained her ankle, so I carried her home." I had no interest in exposing his lie. Surrounded by my parents' concern, Mia added softly, "Adam has been away on a business trip lately. If not, I wouldn't have troubled Brandon." Her words weren't an explanation, they were a boast. "I've always been spoiled since I was little," she continued with a sweet smile. A brain hurt so much. Thankfully, Brandon ran through 10 red lights to rush me to the hospital and even carried me home. "I've troubled him too much." She smiled at me, clearly trying to provoke a reaction. But my cold demeanor didn't give her the satisfaction she sought. Mia rolled her eyes, clearly coming up with another plan. "Since you're already here, why don't you stay for dinner?" she suggested sweetly. No one asked for my opinion. Instead, they decided on my behalf that I would stay. The dinner table was filled with spicy dishes, Mia's favorite. I wasn't surprised. I had once told my parents that I couldn't eat spicy food because of my sensitive stomach, but they only responded with sarcastic remarks. Back when I was with Brandon, he used to care about my preferences. He learned to cook dishes that were gentle on my stomach. But tonight, his attention was solely on Mia. Any small movement she made had him rushing to hand her napkins or serve her food. I suddenly remembered how, in the past, whenever Brandon came to visit me at my parents' house, his eyes would occasionally drift toward Mia. On her birthdays, he would slyly ask me what kind of gifts she liked. When she was sick, he always had an excuse to leave, saying work kept him busy. Thinking about it now, I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. It was so obvious how much he cared about Mia, and yet I only realized it now. Even if Brandon loved Mia deeply, he shouldn't have used me as a tool in his deception. The pain of discovering this truth cut deeper than the rejection I had faced from Adam. The dinner ended with me barely eating anything. On the way home, I finally spoke up. "You go ahead. I'm heading somewhere else." But Brandon responded gently yet firmly. "Wherever you're going, I'll come with you. I can't let you go alone." Seeing that I couldn't refuse him, I gave up trying. I didn't tell him the exact location and instead turned on the GPS for him to follow. The roads were quiet, and soon we were close to my destination. Just as I was about to direct him to turn, Brandon's phone rang. The moment he answered, his mother's worried voice came through. "Brandon, Mia's injury is infected. Can you take her to the hospital?" "I'll be right there," he said without hesitation, already preparing to turn the car around. Then he seemed to remember something and glanced at me with a conflicted expression. Before he could stammer out an excuse, I spoke up. "Just go. I'll walk from here." Without another word, I got out of the car. His concern for Mia won out in the end, and he quickly drove off. Watching his car disappear into the distance, I felt a bitter ache in my chest. If he had driven just a little further, he would have seen that my destination was the office where I would finalize the paperwork to cancel my household registration, a clear sign of my intent to leave. But he didn't notice. Because he didn't care. The process of canceling my registration was swift. Once it was done, I returned home. Not long after, Brandon also came back, looking apologetic. "Leah," he said softly, "you'll be marrying me soon. When that happens, Mia will be part of our family too. That's why I care about her. But it doesn't mean anything. You have to know that you're the only one in my heart." I couldn't understand how Brandon could lie so smoothly. My heart was exhausted, and I didn't have the energy to keep up this charade anymore. "I'm not feeling well. I'm going to rest," I said flatly. Brandon seemed startled by my coldness but didn't think too much of it. He probably assumed I was still upset about him leaving earlier to help Mia. In an attempt to make it up to me, he cancelled all his work obligations and spent the following days taking me out on dates. We had candlelit dinners, strolled through upscale shopping districts, and even watched movies together. But when we arrived at the theater and sat down, I saw a group of people enter. In the middle of the crowd was Mia. Brandon's expression didn't change outwardly, but I could feel his attention shift. His gaze kept drifting toward her. I lost interest in the movie and suggested we leave early. Though he hesitated, his eyes lingering on Mia for a moment, he ultimately chose to leave with me. Just as we stepped out of the theater, a commotion erupted behind us. The theater had caught fire. When the shouts of the crowd became clear, Brandon's face changed. Without hesitation, he tried to push his way through the fleeing crowd, heading straight toward the burning theater. He hadn't made it far when the driver stopped him. "Mr. Brandon, the fire is too intense. You can't go in. The rescue team will be here any moment." But before the driver could finish, Brandon cut him off angrily. "Move aside." Ignoring everyone's attempts to hold him back, he rushed into the flames with resolute determination. By the time the rescue team arrived, Brandon emerged bloodied and exhausted, carrying Mia unconscious in his arms. He gently laid her on a stretcher, treating her like the most precious thing in the world. After confirming that she was okay, he finally collapsed, unconscious. As he fell, the severe burns on his back became visible. The sight was so gruesome it brought tears to my eyes, not out of heartbreak, but because it dredged up memories I'd long tried to forget. Back then, Brandon had pursued me relentlessly for a long time, but I couldn't let go of Adam. I couldn't accept Brandon's feelings. Then one day, I suddenly collapsed and was rushed to the hospital. That's when I found out I had kidney failure. Desperate, I called my parents, begging them to come for compatibility testing. But they refused without hesitation, saying they were about to go on a trip with Mia. "It's not like kidney failure will kill you instantly," they said dismissively. "If it gets worse, let us know after you're gone." In my darkest moment, it was Brandon who quietly got tested. Brandon who silently went into surgery. It wasn't until after the operation that I found out he had donated his kidney to me. I sat by his hospital bed crying for what felt like forever. When he woke up and saw my swollen, tear-streaked face, he pulled me into his arms. "Don't cry. I did this willingly," he said softly. But those words only made me cry harder. In that moment, I thought maybe I should stop waiting for something that would never happen. Maybe I should turn to the person who was always by my side. I began to fall deeply in love with him, only to later discover it was all a lie. Thinking back now, Brandon had always been someone who could risk everything for love. But the person he had always been willing to sacrifice everything for was Mia. This time, Brandon's injuries were severe, and he was hospitalized for a long time. I avoided visiting him, even when his assistant told me repeatedly that he wanted to see me. I ignored it all. One night as I was sleeping, I suddenly felt weight on me. Startled, I woke up to find Brandon lying beside me, still in his hospital gown. It was obvious he had snuck out. He clung to me silently, and I had to struggle several times to push him off. "Why are you here?" I demanded. His voice was filled with sadness. "I missed you," he said softly, his tone tinged with vulnerability. "You haven't visited me at all these past few days. Is it because I ran back to save Mia?" "Sorry. I was wrong. I shouldn't have left you to help someone else. But she's your sister and it was an emergency. Please believe me when I say the only person I care about is you. Don't be angry with me anymore." His words were earnest and sincere. If I didn't know the truth about who he truly loved, I might have believed him. He had rushed back so desperately, yet I couldn't muster any trust or forgiveness. He didn't care about how I felt. What he truly feared was that I might see through his feelings for Mia, that our wedding would face obstacles or that Mia's desires wouldn't be fulfilled. But he would soon have nothing to worry about. I would disappear entirely from their world and live with the happy family I had created for myself. Even if that family was fake, it didn't matter. After all, the real world had never given me even a shred of love. What meaning was there in dwelling on what was real or fake? I wasn't angry. But to prevent him from doubting me, I added casually, "I've just been feeling under the weather lately. Afraid I'd pass it on to you. That's why I haven't visited." Hearing that, Brandon immediately reached for his phone, probably to order medicine. I interrupted him. "I'm fine. You're the one who hasn't fully recovered yet. You should head back to the hospital." Though my words sounded concerned, my face betrayed no emotion. In truth, I looked as though I was urging him to leave. Brandon hesitated, feeling slightly uneasy, but dismissed his suspicions as overthinking. He obediently stood up to leave. Yet when he saw me lying motionless on the bed without any intention of walking him out, he stopped in his tracks. With a hint of grievance, he muttered, "If you're not coming with me, I'm not leaving." We went back and forth like this until I sighed in resignation, got dressed, and followed him downstairs. During his stay at the hospital, he barely left my side, clinging to me incessantly. Everyone at the hospital admired what they thought was our love. But to me, it was nothing but a cruel irony. Only I knew the truth, that all of this was nothing more than an illusion. A few days later, Brandon was discharged from the hospital. However, the moment we got into the car, his phone rang again. I realized the attendees weren't just Brandon's friends. Mia was there too. The moment Brandon saw her, I noticed a flicker of happiness cross his face, though he quickly masked it. I had already caught that look before. The way he tried so hard to hide his feelings for her would have fooled anyone else. But not me. As night fell, a meteor streaked across the sky, followed by another, then several more. The crowd gasped in awe before closing their eyes to make wishes. A street vendor pushing a small cart made his way through the group, calling out about wishing bottles. "Write your wish under the meteor shower," he said, "and I'll hang it on the wishing tree. It'll make your dreams come true." Even though I knew such things were just illusions, Mia's enthusiasm was contagious. Everyone eagerly bought a bottle. When it was Brandon's turn, he didn't buy just one. He bought the entire stock. His friends couldn't help but tease him. "Brandon, what are you going to do with so many bottles?" "Write on all of them." They laughed. "You've already got everything you could want. Why do you need so many wishes? Isn't that a bit greedy?" Brandon just smiled faintly, ignoring their comments as if lost in his own thoughts. Hearing those words, he turned his head toward me, his gaze soft and tender. "I can go without anything," he said quietly, "but I hope Leah has everything." As soon as he finished speaking, one of his friends teased him again. "Brandon, you're such a love fool." Totally whipped. If anyone else had been teased like that, they might have been embarrassed, but I said nothing. I just watched the cart full of wishing bottles silently. Then I quietly wrote my own wish. Brandon, curious, leaned closer to see, but I quickly hid the paper. "If you see it, it won't come true," I said lightly. He didn't press further. Instead, he reached out and patted my head. "Leah, your wish will definitely come true." I smiled faintly, saying nothing. But inwardly I agreed with him. Yes, my wish would absolutely come true. Before sealing my wish inside the bottle, I opened the paper one last time to look at it. The words I had written were simple. Mia and Brandon never meet again. After Brandon finished writing wishes for the pile of bottles he had bought, the meteor shower was almost over. Just as we were about to leave, a startled cry rang out behind us. Turning back, I saw Mia sitting on the ground, her eyes red with tears. "I think I've twisted my ankle," she said, her voice trembling with helplessness. Brandon immediately panicked. Without hesitation, he rushed through the crowd and carried her on his back, heading down the mountain. I didn't stop him. I merely stood there silently watching as everyone gathered around Mia, showering her with concern. Then, while they were occupied, I turned and climbed back up the mountain alone. I found the vendor who had helped us hang our wishing bottles earlier. Handing him a generous sum of money, I asked, "Can you take down the bottles we just hung?" Not long after, I sat down at a random spot, opening each bottle. Brandon had written a wish for every single one. One by one, I unfolded the notes. "I hope Mia is happy every year. I wish Mia a beautiful life. May Mia always be healthy and surrounded by good people. To the girl I love, Mia. May you live a life full of peace and happiness." All 99 bottles. Every single wish bore Mia's name. Not one of them mentioned me. My vision blurred with tears, but I quickly blinked them away. I left the bottles scattered on the ground, not caring what became of them, and began walking down the mountain. When I reached the bottom, I saw Brandon pacing anxiously. The moment he spotted me, he rushed over and wrapped me in a tight embrace. His voice trembled with fear. "Leah, where were you? After I came down the mountain, I couldn't find you anywhere. Thank God you're okay. Don't ever leave my sight again." His worry seemed so genuine that even his friends couldn't resist teasing him. "Brandon, relax. There's only one path down the mountain. She couldn't have gone far. See, she's perfectly fine. You're so worked up. It's almost endearing how worried you get." Their words were clearly meant to reassure me, to convince me that Brandon truly cared. But I ignored them. My gaze went straight to Mia, whose ankle was now wrapped in a bandage. The way she smirked slightly, with a hint of triumph, told me everything. Her expression seemed to say, you see, everyone says he loves you, but deep down we both know the person he truly cares about is me. A deep sense of humiliation surged within me, but I forced it down. It's fine. All of this will end soon. That day passed uneventfully. But not long after, it was Mia's birthday. My parents spared no expense, booking an entire yacht for the celebration and even inviting Brandon and me. They seemed to have completely forgotten that it was also my birthday. I was used to this, it had always been this way. When the invitation arrived, Brandon hesitated before agreeing. It's your birthday too. Let's skip it this year, he said. His reluctance to refuse was obvious. He wanted to go but was trying to maintain appearances in front of me. Played along. It's fine. Let's go, I said lightly. Relieved, he pulled me into a hug. I'm sorry we can't celebrate your birthday properly this year. I promise I'll make it up to you next year. I let out a quiet laugh. Next year. There won't be a next year. In just a few days, I'll disappear from their world entirely. At the party, Mia wore a luxurious, custom-designed gown and stood in the center of the crowd, surrounded by admiration and praise. Even Adam, who had been overseas for business, had returned. He stood beside Mia, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit. Together they looked like the perfect couple. When it came time for the gift-giving, everyone presented their carefully prepared offerings. My parents and Adam, being the most important people in Mia's life, gave gifts that drew the most attention: extravagant jewelry and a limited edition luxury car. Then it was Brandon's turn. He pulled out a certificate, and while everyone looked on in confusion, he opened it to reveal a design adorned with ruby accents. Mia, you already have everything, he said. After thinking long and hard, I decided this would suit you best. From today, you have the right to name this cloud. Gasps filled the room. The idea of naming a cloud was both extravagant and unheard of. Even that can be bought. Brandon truly went to great lengths, someone murmured. Admiration rippled through the crowd. Amid the noise, I quietly slipped out to the deck for some fresh air. The cool breeze was a relief from the stifling atmosphere inside. But before long, Mia followed me. Standing behind me, she looked at me with disdain and mockery. Sister, what are you trying to do? Seems that not just Adam but even Brandon has feelings for me. Her words felt like a blade. Yet I couldn't understand. From childhood she had taken everything from me. My parents' love, my friends, even my relationships, including both Adam and now Brandon. Why couldn't she let me go? Why did she feel the need to flaunt it all in front of me? Frustrated, I finally asked, why? Why do you keep doing this to me? Mia dropped her facade entirely and smirked. Because I enjoy seeing you suffer. Makes me happy. And soon I'll get to see it all over again. Her words puzzled me and I frowned. What do you mean? Instead of answering, she grabbed my wrist, and with a sudden pull, dragged me over the edge of the yacht. Before I could react, we both plunged into the sea. Salt water flooded my nose and mouth, choking me. Instinctively, I wanted to cry for help, but seawater rushed into my throat, burning and suffocating. Fear of death consumed me as I struggled against the waves, my consciousness fading. Amid the chaos, I saw someone finally notice the commotion. Soon I heard the sounds of multiple splashes. Adam, Brandon, and Trey had all jumped in without hesitation. All three swam toward Mia. From the yacht, I could faintly hear Mia's mother screaming in panic. Save Mia. You must save Mia. In that moment, despair engulfed me. The realization that everyone had abandoned me pierced deeper than the icy water. I closed my eyes, resigned to the thought of death. But then the sound of someone swimming closer reached me, growing louder. It was as if someone was coming for me. Barely conscious, I opened my eyes. When I made out the face of the person nearing me, I was utterly stunned. It was Adam. Before I could process why he would save me, darkness swallowed me whole. When I woke up, I was in a hospital. Blinking against the dryness in my eyes, I shifted my gaze from the pale white ceiling to the man sitting vigilantly by my bedside. After confirming multiple times that I wasn't dreaming, I struggled to believe it. The only person who had stayed by my side was Adam. Suppressing the shock swirling within me, I kept my tone calm and asked, "Why aren't you with Mia?" "I just checked on her before coming here," he replied. "There are plenty of people with her. Brandon's there too." He seemed to expect that mentioning Brandon would provoke a strong reaction from me. But I remained expressionless. Without missing a beat, I dismissed him. "Then you should go back. I prefer being alone." Despite my words, Adam didn't move. I glanced at him, puzzled. "Is there something else?" "Don't marry Brandon," he said after a long pause. His voice unusually soft, as if choosing his words carefully. But once he started, the rest spilled out in a rush. "He's only with you because he wants you to step aside for me." It was as though a burden he had carried for so long had finally been lifted. But when he looked at me, expecting a reaction, he found only calm detachment. My face betrayed no emotion, as though I had already known this all along. Adam stared at me, shocked. "You already knew?" I nodded slightly. "Yes. I've known for a while. If you have nothing else to say," I continued evenly, "you can leave now." Adam didn't leave. Instead, he grew visibly agitated. "You know, and you're still planning to marry him? Are you crazy?" I smiled faintly at his outburst. "What does it matter to you? Didn't I already call off our engagement and hand you over to Mia, the woman you've always cared about?" My words silenced him. Adam seemed unable to form a response. He didn't know why he felt so unsettled. He should have been happy. But lately, whenever he looked at Mia, memories of me would surface, me following him around, always by his side. Even in his dreams, it was me he saw. Just as the silence stretched on, the hospital room door suddenly swung open. Brandon stormed in, and the moment he saw Adam, his expression darkened. I realized then that I had been living in someone else's shadow for far too long. Mia was the sun everyone revolved around. Even Brandon, the man who claimed to love me, had orbited her his whole life. And Adam, well, he never saw me at all. But now, as I sat in the hospital bed watching Brandon fight for his life just to save the woman he truly loved, I felt something shift inside me. Not anger. Not sadness. Just clarity. They didn't need me. They never had. And maybe, just maybe, I didn't need them either. So I made a choice. Not to run away this time, but to face them. To face all of them. Brandon was still recovering when I showed up at their little gathering under the stars. The same group of friends, the same meteor shower, the same wishing bottles. Mia looked surprised to see me, and Brandon. He froze mid-sentence like he'd seen a ghost. Maybe he had. I smiled at him. Not the cold, distant smile I'd perfected over the last few weeks, but a real one. One that said, "I know everything and I forgive you." He looked stunned. I walked over to the wishing tree, holding a single bottle in my hand. Everyone watched me in silence as I tied it to the highest branch. No one asked what I wished for. Not even Brandon. The next morning I stood on the deck of a boat, watching the sunrise. Mia was beside me. And this time I didn't flinch when she reached for my hand. We didn't talk about what happened on the yacht. We didn't have to. The truth didn't need words anymore. She knew what she'd done. And I knew why she did it. 'Cause she thought love was something you could take. But I'd learned something new. Love isn't something you win or lose. It's not a prize, not a competition. It's not something you hoard or steal or force into being. Real love doesn't come from possession or obsession. It grows quietly, in the spaces where no one is watching. And for the first time in my life I felt free enough to let it grow. Not for Brandon, not for Adam, not even for Mia. For myself. A few months later, Brandon came looking for me again. He found me in a quiet seaside town. Alone but not lonely. Happy but not fake. He looked at me with those same tired eyes and whispered, "Can I start over?" I smiled gently. "You already did." And with that, I turned back to the sea, letting the waves carry away the last pieces of a life I no longer needed.